It's time once again for That Business Show with Jamie Meloni on 1250 Wins WHNZ, where business becomes show business. Now, live in studio and promoting the entrepreneurial spirit that drives the American economy, your host, Jamie Meloni.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome yet again to another show of That Business Show with Jamie Meloni, where business becomes show business. You'll catch this show on weekdays here on 1250 WHNZ, as my show aims to promote the entrepreneurial spirit driving the American economy. Learn more about my show over at TampaBayRadio.com, and also connect with me on all the social media sites, including Facebook over at that Facebook.com/That Business Show, and Twitter under Jamie_Meloni. You can also catch the show now over on iTunes as well. So a big announcement for myself coming out yesterday. I'm also a real estate agent with Coldwell Banker, and you can learn more about my properties also over on my website, TampaBayRadio.com, as I'm a bank-owned listing specialist. But the National Coldwell Banker Awards came out yesterday, and I'm proud to announce that I was ranked number 4 nationally in homes sold, so quite an accomplishment. And so please contact me if you're in the Tampa Bay market looking to get your home sold. I was ranked number 10 in 2013 and moved up 6 spots this past year into the number 4 spots for homes sold. So again, please contact me. Best way to get me, just shoot me a quick email, jamie@tampabayradio.com. And also congratulations to business partner and fellow teammate Christina Griffin out of the same office for coming in at number 7. So our Coldwell Banker office in South Tampa is a top-level real estate brokerage, and we can get your home sold. Just head over to TampaBayRadio.com, and on the main page there's a button. Just click Sell Your House, and I will send you over a free home valuation, and we can talk about getting your home onto the marketplace. And to many of you, may be surprised what your home is worth, especially if you bought in 2012. That was the bottom of the market. We've seen real estate values pop up about 20% in many of the communities, especially New Tampa, Southeast Hillsborough County, due in large part to a lot of institutional investing. So if you bought in 2012 and a couple years have gone by here now, you may be looking at a pretty good gain. So feel free to reach out to me. Again, TampaBayRadio.com. Shoot me a quick message either through the contact form, or just shoot me a direct email, jamie@TampaBayRadio.com. Got 2 great guests in studio today. In just a moment, we'll be speaking with Chris Kermitzos, founder of the Tampa Bay Business Owners Association. And on the second part of the show, we're going to be talking with Steve Gavatorta of the Steve Gavatorta Group. He is a speaker, trainer, and coach, and author of the Reach Out Approach, a communication process for initiating, developing, and leveraging mutually rewarding relationships. But first, I'm going to bring on the first guest of the show. Chris Kermitzos is the founder and CEO of the Tampa Bay Business Owners, a premier business growth organization focusing on producing results and growth for CEOs and business owners. He also founded e-marketing groups, internet marketing education groups that run in 3 Tampa Bay locations, and he's also the founder of the newest podcast out there today, the Story Jam Theater. Chris, welcome to the show today.
Jamie, thanks for having me on, and congrats on hitting number 4 on Coldwell Banker. Next year we'll be number 1, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Need the support of the community out there. So please, contact me to get your home sold. I absolutely know how to get those homes sold. So please reach out to me, and thank you very much, Chris. So let's start with first of all, tell us a little bit more about podcasting and your latest project, the Story Jam Theater.
So Story Jam Theater is a program we started because we have so many amazing stories that we hear. Just like on the show, you have someone tell you a story, but there's no other platform if you're out in business that people will say, hey, stand up and tell me a story. And we figured, hey, this is a perfect platform, podcasting, to throw out these stories. And yesterday we had a story from Tom Ziegler, Zig Ziglar's son. He was in for an event, and we got him to share a story, and he told a story about his dad. And it was interesting. He said how his dad would be on a plane, and the moment he got on that plane, he passed out. And he would sleep from the time that plane would land. And he'd have this manila folder next to him. And once that plane landed, he'd open that manila folder and start preparing for his presentation. And he said he never saw his dad not prepare for a presentation. And he'd say to his dad, Dad, you're the greatest speaker out there. Why do you prepare? He goes, because every time it's a new person hearing my presentation, and I want to make sure that I give him the best that I got. It was more details than that, but it was a really powerful thing of a son talking about his dad, and his dad just happens to be Zig Ziglar, one of the greatest motivators of all time.
Yeah, and I love the idea of the stories and stuff, because I mean that's really what engages listeners, is telling stories, because you learn so much from stories. I mean, you have a great story, that kind of set the path for your business successes with your Uncle Jimmy at a young age. Tell us that story.
Well, Uncle Jimmy lived in Gulf Harbors here in the Tampa Bay area on the water, and one day I was visiting his house, and while I was hanging out with him, Uncle Jimmy is a meticulous record keeper, so he has file cabinets that have his financial records from 1980 and on. And basically in New York, he was an ice cream wholesaler. He bought a place with his partner Zeno. They had about 90 accounts, and within a short period of time, they went from 90 accounts to about 1,200 accounts. And they would sell these 2.5-gallon drums of ice cream to all the restaurants in town. And one day he was really frustrated. He's retired at this point. He's really frustrated going over his financial records. And he does this for fun. He's looking at his financial records. And he says, I'm really upset because these bastards cost me millions of dollars. I said, Uncle Jimmy, what are you talking about? You're retired. He goes, I was just going over my numbers. And he was basically doing a recap of his entire business career with the ice cream factory. And he said, these 30 or 40 accounts cost me 80% of my losses, and 80% of my time was spent facilitating them. He goes, but let me tell you about one that didn't happen the way it should have happened. And he started sharing me the story about a guy named Paul, who had two of the busiest restaurants in Astoria, Queens. And Paul would pay before the invoice would come in. And I said the obvious thing. I said, Uncle Jimmy, that can't be too bad. I mean, he's paying before the invoice. He goes, yeah, but Paul was paying what he felt like it, not what the invoice was. And I said, well, what did you do? He goes, well, it took me a while to figure it out, because this was before, online record keeping. Mm-hmm. And so someone pays, you don't necessarily look there to see if they're clipping you, especially if he's paying before the invoice comes in.
Right.
So it takes him about 6 months to figure it out. So he visits Paul with his partner Zeno, and Uncle Jimmy would always have a grilled cheese sandwich when he went to New York City diner, just to be safe, So he had his grilled cheese sandwich. He went and talked to Paul, and he said, Paul, he goes, Paul's like, Jimmy, aren't I your best customer? I always pay you before the invoice. You have any customers like that? He goes, no, Paul, you're the only one that pays before my invoice comes in. However, I'm a wholesaler, and I charge $10 for these 2.5-gallon drums of ice cream you buy. When you pay me, $9.50, you're literally getting into my margin, which is very slim. Paul said, I'm really sorry, Jimmy. He settled up with my Uncle Jimmy. Everything is fine. About a year later, my Uncle Jimmy finds money missing again, and he can't figure out who it is. And it's Paul. Paul's paying what he feels like again. This time he goes back with his partner Zeno. His partner Zeno was the peacemaker. Please, Jimmy, let's not have a fight. These are busy New York City diners. It's like people eating it's a packed. Mm-hmm. So Uncle Jimmy goes back. He has his grilled cheese sandwich. But this time, when Uncle Jimmy goes to pay, he gives the cashier a $10 bill. And she says, Jimmy, the bill is $14.75. And he says he didn't want to get in an argument with this beautiful girl that's working there. He said, do me a favor, go get Paul. And Paul and I will talk about it. So the owner, Paul, comes over. He goes, Jimmy, I'm so glad you came out, but you made a mistake. He goes, what's the mistake, Paul? He goes, you gave me a $10 bill for the check. The check is $14.75. He goes, Paul, today I feel like paying $10. Right. And Paul goes, Jimmy, you can't do that. He goes, why can't I do that? He goes, because, my bill is $14.75. He goes, well, you lying, cheating bastard, you've been doing it to me for the last year. Why can't I do it if it's, fair enough? So the two of them now have I can't say what they said in right. in the diner, but literally all the customers just stopped, like they froze. And that was the day my Uncle Jimmy fired his client. Mm-hmm. Now, in that lesson, he taught me, be careful who you do business with. Fire the people before you even get into bed with them. Because what he was doing in his 70s was he was relooking at a 30-year business history, and he was figuring out if he had cut those customers that didn't respect his prices, he would have been he was the largest wholesaler, but he would have been even bigger. Mm-hmm. He could expand into more states. And that lesson always stayed with me. Stand by your value. Do business with people that respect your value. And make sure, not to take any, from anyone if they're not respecting the boundaries you've set. And yeah. It was a very powerful lesson for me in business.
Yeah, that's such a great story, and something that so many of us that are business owners, fail to recognize, that we spend so much of our time on some of the most underproducing clients, and sometimes we just have to end some of those relationships to increase our profitability. So that's a great story that demonstrates that fact. Now, I want to go back to another story that you were well known for. You also used to host the Bleeping Truth on public access TV, and several years ago you had, I think, Joe Redner on the show, and there was a situation, the chair throwing incident made some attention. Tell me that story.
So I started a concept. The first concept I started was a business show like this one. It was called Millionaire Mindset on public access. But that was very boring because it was great, but I didn't get any juice out of it. So we said, let's start a debate show. So who's one of the most fiery debaters in Tampa Bay? Joe Redner. He runs for office every year, and he's very passionate about topics. So we matched him up with this gentleman named Tony Katz, who is a radio personality out of Hernando. He answered a Craigslist ad. Back then, everybody used Craigslist. And I said, these guys are polar opposite. Let's have them debate. On the third time I had the two debate, they switched their viewpoints because they hated each other so much. Does that even make sense? so Joe would not debate his normal viewpoints, and the other guy, so the Republican became the Democrat became like the Republican because they did not want to agree with each other, and they were messing with each other. So it got, like, if you could imagine how heated that gets, if someone that passionate switches their viewpoints because they don't like the other person. So what happened was, the one thing you don't call Joe Redner is a liar because he'll tell you the truth. You'll say, Joe, did you do drugs? Actually, yes, in 1970, he'll tell you exactly what he did. And the other guy was a little overweight, and I guess that was his hot button since he was a child. So when the one gentleman called Joe Redner a liar, Joe Redner then called him fat, and he said, am I lying about that? And it basically went to name-calling, and what was going through my head is I was younger than both of them. If you added their age, I think they were 3 times older than me. So I'm like, I started kind of laughing, kind of like what you do, but I was nervous because this is a live show.
Right.
And I'm thinking to my head, I can't believe I'm the one that has to be the level-headed guy here. So the one guy rips his mic off on a live show. Luckily, it was the last minute of the show, right? Otherwise, I'd have to fill time of me and Joe just looking at each other. He gets off the set, but when you're in a big TV studio, there's a lighting grid, and the lighting grid is very bright. So none of us could see anything once he was past the lighting grid. My camera guy froze. I mean, he was scared because he watched the gentleman take this chair that was about 30 pounds and fling it across the entire set, and it hit Joe right in the face. Oh, wow. Luckily, it hit the table before it hit Joe in the face. Otherwise, he would have went straight to the hospital. The table took the brunt of the hit, and he ran out. Words were exchanged. Literally, my technical director and the entire history of that show never put up our logo or credits in time for the end of the show. That day, he did everything perfect. It was the only day he ever did everything perfect. And that clip then got the press picked up on it, and literally we were in 300 media outlets across the country. I mean, late night with Craig Ferguson. The one thing I do regret is the Tonight Show called me. And I played it too business-like. That's all I could tell you. I should have just been like, oh, my God, I'm so excited you guys called. Right. You can have the clip for free. Play it all you want. I tried to negotiate that because people were paying. I was able to license out the clip. But it was a really great experience for me. And I think for all of us, we weren't encouraging violence. But when you have passionate people, it gets kind of crazy, and the topics we would feature are topics no one else would touch.
Hey, any attention in the media is good attention, they say. So.
Yeah.
That's a great story, and something I remember, from several years ago that really put you on the map there with your show and everything. So, got to take a quick break. We're currently talking with Chris Krimitsos, founder of the Tampa Bay Business Owners Association. And again, you're listening to That Business Show with Jamie Meloni, where business becomes show business. Tampa Bay weather is a roof killer. That's why when getting your roof done, you want it done right. Hi, I'm Jamie Meloni of the Jamie Meloni Real Estate Show. When considering a new roof or repair, talk to Westfall Roofing. They've been installing high-quality roofs in Tampa Bay for over 25 years. Get a free, no-obligation estimate by calling 855-99-ROOFING. Find out what already 15,000 satisfied customers already know. Call now, 855-99-ROOFING. That's 855-99-ROOFING.
Bud Spriggs and Movement Mortgage want you to experience the thrill of one-day underwriting and the comfort in knowing your loans will be clear to close in record time. While the competition looks to a lost closing date, Bud Spriggs and Movement Mortgage focus on their 12-day clear to close. They do this by utilizing their world-class operations staff to underwrite your loan within 6 hours, process your loan in 12 days, and have your loan closed in time. Underwritten in 6 hours, cleared to close in 12 days. Bud Spriggs and Movement Mortgage. Are you in need of new flooring or ready to tackle that home remodeling project? Then contact Yeager & Company Incorporated, a family-owned, state-certified general contracting business with over 70 years of experience and the recipient of the Angie's List Super Service Award for the last 8 years in multiple categories. Yeager & Company comes to you with their shop-at-home flooring sales service, and their hardwood flooring refinishing is the very best in the Bay. Kitchen and bath Bath design featuring American-made, well-born cabinets. And all work is done by employees, not subcontractors. Learn more at YagerFlooring.com. In the market for a reverse mortgage? Contact Access Reverse, a local company with personalized service in the Bay Area. Call them at 727-347-0305 or visit AccessReverse.com for a no-cost, no-obligation consultation. They'll come to your home and speak with you about the best options for your reverse mortgage. Plus, they offer the lowest closing costs. Don't just get a reverse mortgage. Get the right reverse mortgage with Access Reverse. Visit AccessReverse.com. NMLS number 4566.
This report is brought to you by iHeartMedia.
Looking for a way to increase your business? Ever thought about advertising on radio? iHeartMedia can customize a campaign to meet your specific needs. Call 844-BUY-RADIO. That's 844-BUY-RADIO. Or go to iHeartMedia.com.
From the Bright House Network's Traffic Center.
Thanks to a tip line caller for letting us know about a disabled vehicle on 275 southbound near Himes. Looks like a lane is blocked here, seeing very heavy delays through the downtown interchange. Still seeing a crash on US 19 southbound approaching Alderman. This still has a lane blocked. See traffic problems? Call the injury firm of Abrahamson and Uterwick Hillsborough Traffic Tip Line, 866-545-9595.
Freeze warnings in effect until 9 o'clock. Wind chill advisory in effect until 10. Sunny and not as windy, high 56. Not as cold tonight, low 43. Tomorrow, sunny, high 72.
You're listening to That Business Show with Jamie Meloni on 1250 Wins WHNZ. Once again, here's your host, Jamie Meloni.
Welcome back to That Business Show with Jamie Meloni, where business becomes show business. Again, you'll find the show on weekdays at 8 a.m. here on 1250 WHNZ, and learn more about the show over at my website, TampaBayRadio.com. Currently talk with Chris Kermitzos of the Tampa Bay Business Owners Organization. And Chris, tell me how your organization, the TBBO, gave rise to your podcast.
So within the Tampa Bay Business Owners, we have over 300 business owners, and I'm excited to connect you around in the community. But people would have the most amazing stories in between the education sessions, if that makes sense. So, you have a speaker come up, they talk about something really cool, but we'd all go out to dinner after, and people would tell us life-altering stories. And I just didn't have a platform to really feature it. And it didn't make sense in the business setting because you're teaching and you're telling stories, but I just wanted the story itself. And the story is usually, a great story runs about 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and then if someone's even a better storyteller, you could do a 10-minute story. And that's how Story Jam Theater came about. And it's already impacting a lot of people's lives. My goal is to get it down to 1 million downloads a week.
Wow.
And it's in the same space as the Moth podcast, which is out of New York City. And that's what they're doing. So I think with consistency and time, we'll be able to get those numbers up, because to get a really great story is hard to come by as far as in front of a live audience, because there's also a performance element to it too. Mm-hmm. So last night we just did an event. We had over 100 people in the audience. Well, we do test runs because you don't want someone choking in front of a group of people, and storytelling is its own craft.
Mm-hmm. Now, you told me a story just a little bit ago about a young video producer in Orlando. Elaborate on this for the audience.
So this was, we did one when we first started. It was called My Epic Fail was the theme of the story session. And this was a good friend of mine, Neil Gilarte, who's really successful. But this was when he was starting out. He was 22. And he had his own web streaming show. And this was in, 99, or it was early on of the internet, very early. He's in Orlando. And he forgot to turn his clock off. So it was Saturday morning, and his clock woke him up. And Doc and Johnny were on the radio. They were the famous personalities out there. And they said, "Hey, come out to Orlando, to Walmart. There's a young group performing." And he's like, "Okay, well, I'm up now. I'm not going to sleep in. Let me go record this stuff for some content for my video streaming website." And he went over there and he set up his camera. And as he's setting up, he saw a little platform he could stand on, so he could get kind of the band coming off. But he's like, "Who's going to watch this band? They're in the Walmart, There's 20 girls, and there was 50, 100 screaming girls at this band that was starting up." So as the band is coming off, the big bodyguard, big guy elbows him, and he falls to the ground, and his camera breaks. He goes up to the manager and he goes, "Hey," and he's really, really upset. He goes, "You guys have to pay for my camera." And the manager goes, "Look, I'll pay for your camera, but I'll do one better. Why don't you come travel with us as we go to all the local Walmarts in Florida and we watch perform?" Now, at this moment, he is not a happy camper, okay? He just came out on a Saturday morning. They broke his camera. He said, "Look, dude, just pay me for my camera. This band's not going anywhere. They're performing at Walmart." So the guy goes, "Okay." So he sends him a check for his camera. And about a year later, the guy didn't forget about Neil. He sends him a VHS tape, and on one side it said over 1 million copies sold. On the other side it said this could have been you. And it was NSYNC's In the Mix. The band that was starting out in Orlando was NSYNC, and the people he was filming was Justin Timberlake, Joey Fatone, all the NSYNC band members. And if anyone knows their history, they got started performing at Walmarts in Florida.
Wow,
he was there at the beginning. So his lesson was never to make decisions colored in anger,
right?
Because his anger colored everything he saw. Yeah. He didn't see the talent. He didn't see the hundreds of girls that were screaming. Mm-hmm. In his mind, he saw Walmart, and he saw this band that was just starting out in Orlando, Florida.
Yeah, that's such a great story, and I think it also illustrates a point that I make to people all the time in business. Every decision involves two components, an emotional component and a logical component. I'm a very logical thinker, so whenever something like that presents itself, I think, am I thinking emotionally or am I thinking logically? And if you remove the emotional component to the decision, a lot of times you'll find you'll make better decisions, at least on the professional level, and it's something, I think that story illustrates that point very well. So tell me, how did you learn about podcasting?
I started the Florida Podcasters Association here locally in Florida because a lot of people needed to learn it. But Katie, my wife, and I, we're very fortunate in that Tampa Bay business owners, literally we do 17 educational events a month. And one of the venues we have is called emarketinggroups.com. And we do local meetups at local restaurants around the Tampa Bay area where you can learn about internet marketing. One of the attendees one day said, "Chris, I've been doing podcasting for years now. Do you want me to talk about it?" I said, "Absolutely." I said, "Steve, I'd love it." So we've dubbed Steve now affectionately. He's known as the Podfather, Steve Cherubino. But he taught us about podcasting, and he had an example of a gentleman that just started. His name was John Lee Dumas, who has a show called Entrepreneur on Fire. And I started listening, and John Lee Dumas had just started monetizing his podcast. Currently, he brings in about $300,000 a month. It's all open book. If you go to entrepreneuronfire.com, you can see his monthly statements. He goes through his expenses. And
this is just a podcast. It's just internet based.
iTunes based, Stitcher and stuff like that. But he gets about $62,000 in sponsor revenue. He gets about you got to look at. He delineates everything. So he does open book, so you could see all his numbers. Anyways, Katie and I bought his program early on. It was called Podcasters Paradise, so we could learn. She learned how to the technical aspects. You also need a lot of reviews and ratings on iTunes for it to rank, and that also helps you get a lot more downloads. Now, the challenge is, we started about a year ago. My wife now has had close to 100,000 downloads. She's in 112 countries. She has 22,000 women on her Facebook page, but more importantly, she has over 2,400 women in a private Facebook group. And this all started, she launched February 10th of 2014.
And she has what's the name of her podcast?
Biz Women Rock, B-I-Z Women Rock. So that's something as a case study. And if there's any ladies listening, please feel free to go join, especially in Tampa Bay area. It has a very big contingency. But when we saw the proof is in the pudding, I love doing interview shows, but I didn't want to do that because it's very crowded unless you have your own base like you do, Jamie. You have a radio base. You have a different base that comes to it. So that's why I started Story Jam Theater, because it's a little unique. It's more artistic. It's filmed in front of a live audience, and we strip the audio and put it live on podcasting so you can hear the audience's reaction. So it's more of what we call a theater of mind. And that gives it a distinction, because right now the podcasting space is about to blow up. Even though I would say 2 or 3% of people really listen to podcasts, in the next 5 years you're going to see it go to close to 90 to 100% of the audience, because the Bluetooth capability of the cars now picks up your phone, and people listen to more niche content. So they're actually turning away from listening to radio type content, and they're going to podcasting, which is really one of the same. You just need to have your audience transfer to the podcast medium.
Yeah, I know. And I went to your meeting, the Florida Podcasters meeting just last week, and I didn't realize iTunes was just blowing up with different podcasts. And you were actually my motivation to get my show up on iTunes and everything. So, but you really think that podcasting is really going to blow up in the next few years?
I don't think. I know. Last year I would tell you in the beginning I thought, but once my wife hit, she gets hundreds of people every morning, and they're active. Like, she sends out an email to her base, she'll get 42 replies.
Wow, that's incredible. Got to take a quick break. Coming back from the break, we'll talk a little bit more with Chris Krimitsos, but we're also going to be talking with Steve Gavatorta of the Steve Gavatorta Group. And if you're just tuning in, you've been listening to That Business Show with Jamie Meloni, where business becomes show business.
Hi, welcome to Yeager's. We just want to take a minute and show you what we're all about. At Yeager's, our primary business is hardwood flooring, although we are remodelers for kitchen, bath, and general construction. We operate a fleet of shop-at-home vans that have all the flooring-type products, hardwood flooring, laminate flooring, tile, stone, what have you. So we're able to come out first with products in our vehicles and take a look at the setting, how the colors will work, and then to be able to come up with some options and ideas for you. If that's not good enough, we have a large distribution center that we inventory product and have a nice display area.
Over, and your house is so beautiful with those new drapes from Budget Blinds, and we really want to impress them.
Call Budget Blinds and have your own house done. Right now, you can save hundreds of dollars on your custom window coverings.
Wow! Do they still give you a free design consultation and measure and install the window treatments for you?
Yes, and they give you their no questions asked warranty.
Gotta go. I'm calling now.
It's the Budget Blinds Window Fashion's blowout sale event with very stylish savings. Your style consultant will tell you how you can save hundreds of dollars on a huge selection of window coverings. Call 1-800-260-8939 now to get a free in-home design consultation and save. Hurry, sale ends soon. Call 1-800-260-8939. That's 1-800-260-8939.
If you want the best looking grass in the neighborhood, top dress your lawn now with up to a ½ inch of Black Cow composted cow manure. This gives the dark, rich organic matter in Black Cow time to work its magic on your yard before summer arrives. It's a natural fertilizer that releases nutrients slowly. Look for the bright yellow and black bag at your garden center and visit us on the web at blackcow, spelled with a K.com.
Black Cow. The mature manure, Black Cow.
This report is brought to you by iHeart Media.
Looking for a way to increase your business? Ever thought about advertising on radio? iHeartMedia can customize a campaign to meet your specific needs. Call 844-BUY-RADIO. That's 844-BUY-RADIO. Or go to iHeartMedia.com.
From the Bright House Network's Traffic Center.
Seeing a stop-and-go ride on 275 southbound through the downtown interchange approaching Howard, Armenia because of a disabled vehicle that has the right lane blocked. This is also causing a big backup on I-4 westbound as you approach 275. We're still seeing delays on the Veterans Expressway from Gun Highway to Hillsborough. See traffic problems? Call the injury firm of Abrahamson and Uterwick. Hillsborough Traffic Tip Line 866-545-9595.
Winds, weather center forecast. After the very cold morning, we'll see temperatures get into the upper 50s, near 60 degrees. Lots of sunshine today. Tonight's low still in the cold range, mid to low 40s, some 30s to the north. Impact Radio, 1250 winds.
You're listening to That Business Show with Jamie Meloni on 1250 Winds WHNZ. Once again, here's your host, Jamie Meloni.
And welcome back to That Business Show with Jamie Meloni, where business becomes show business. We were just talking with Chris Kremitzos of the Tampa Bay Business Owners Association. Some great stories, and learn more about Chris over at tbbo.org. Going to bring in our second guest of the show, Steve Gavatorta. He's the author of The Reach Out Approach, a communication process for initiating, developing, and leveraging mutually rewarding relationships. He's also a consultant, trainer, and coach, and speaker who conducts workshops and speaks on the topic of effective communication and how it is a catalyst for personal development, success in sales management, leadership, team building, and dealing with change and solving for conflict. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jamie. Pleasure to be here, and another congratulations for your number 4 ranking.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So tell me a little bit more about your programs.
Yeah, the fundamental piece that I train on is really helping people or companies build trust through effective communication. Would you not agree that the most foundational element of any successful relationship is trust, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
If you're in a real estate world and you're selling, if your customers don't trust you, if those home shoppers don't trust you, you're not going to have a semblance or a foundation of an effective relationship. So what I do is teach people to build trust through effective communication. I basically say you must connect with someone before you engage them. You must engage them before you build rapport. You must build rapport before you're ultimately credible, and only when you're credible are you trusted. So I walk through a 3-step process to help my customers build trust through effective communication, and then I'll build modules around how that can help them in sales, being a manager, leadership, situational examples as well, too, dealing with change, risk, and conflict as well.
Now, tell me about your background. I was looking at your website. I mean, you got a lot of big clients and stuff. So tell me about how you came to develop your company.
Yeah, I've owned my company for about 11 years, and prior to that, I spent 21 years in corporate America. Really various cross-functional roles and responsibilities in various consumer packaged goods companies. When I say CPG or consumer packaged goods companies, those are companies that sell to Walmarts, Publix, CVS's, and whatnot. And I started off at the very ground level selling to retail grocery managers, feminine hygiene products, if you can imagine that, how fun that was. But selling to retail grocery managers and worked my way up the ladder, basically as a manager. I worked in marketing. I spent some time in training and multiple cross-functional programs. My first job, I was very fortunate. My first job out of college was with a company called Beecham Products, which is now part of GlaxoSmithKline Consumer Brands Division. All their former managers were ex-Procter & Gamble folks. So I'm not sure if you know about the training that P&G or Procter & Gamble uses, but they were the top of the line, the best, the Cadillac in training. Okay. So I had that firm training background. As I progressed in corporate America, I spent 10 years with them, 5 with the division of Warner Lambert, and ended my career with a company you may have heard of at one time. They were called Eastman Kodak, kind of a dinosaur. Companies stopped training and developing their people. They stopped spending the time teaching them fundamental skill sets to help them to become successful. And as I was sitting in some of these trainings, I was looking at the consultant thinking I could be doing what they're doing, but even better. So after about 21 years, I walked cold turkey and started my own business and have been happy at it for 11 years.
Now, tell me some of the points of differentiation with your program and other consulting firms. So tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. My programs consist of 2 parts. First part is practical application, where we will teach fundamental skills based on a need that I will identify in working with them. I don't strictly do vanilla programs. I'll spend time working with my companies. As example, my biggest CPG company, I'll spend time working in the field with their sales folks. I'll spend time in meetings, understanding the everyday ins and outs that they face, and I'll build relevant modules. Based on those relevant modules, we will do practical skill set development. Then after the skill sets are laid out, I'll build real-world modules to tie into taking these practical skills into their world. What might work for a pharmaceutical company will be totally different for a CPG company or a media-based company or a financial institution. So clearly understand their needs is key in me developing a relevant program and becoming helping them, I should say, become successful.
Now, tell me about some of the tools you use to kind of fit people together. You mentioned the disc profile. Tell me about the disc profile, and I got a little bit of my own input on that. But go ahead with that.
Yeah, that's I use behavioral models as that tool to build trust through effective communication. So I'm certified in a multitude of assessments. The prime one I use, the one you mentioned, is DISC, which is a behavioral model that helps people understand 4 base behavior styles.
Yeah, and that's an acronym D, I, S, and C.
Exactly.
And each, depending on the different levels, defines your personality. But let's go ahead and continue and tell me about the different areas of the DISC profile.
Sure. D stands for dominance, I stands for influencing, S stands for steadiness, C stands for compliance. So that's the main tool I use. I also use Myers-Briggs for a lot of people that are familiar with that. But as an example, we'll stick with DISC. What I do is 3 steps. I help people learn their respective behavior style. So, and when I say behavior, it's not just how I'm behaving and or communicating. It's behavior, communication, decision-making, how people are motivated, and how people deal change, risk, and conflict. Because if I can understand those attributes in myself and understand it in others, I can make a better connection with them. So first step is learning the 4 styles, and in my workshops, people will learn what their respective DISC behavior style is. Then the second step I do is I teach people to read the styles of those with whom they're interacting with. So it'd be great if we were in a world where I could be working with a client and I can help them pass on the survey to their customers. That's not how it works in real world. You can't go to a home shopper and say, hey, take this DISC survey so I can better sell to you. I've got to teach you the skill of reading the style of those home shoppers. So that's the second step. I'll teach people to read the styles. And I have different methods, one of which is instructional videos. And the third piece is I teach people to adapt their style for effective communication. So if I'm a type A personality, I'm very gregarious, talkative, outgoing, I'm a risk taker, I move at a really fast pace. If I'm selling to someone that's very introverted, very risk averse, they do not make quick decisions, there's a chance I can turn them off with my type A personality. I teach people to understand the attributes of their style and that they are a type A personality, and to notice the style of someone else to adapt for effective communication. And in other words, help them sell better, help them become a better manager, and help them deal with situational things such as change, risk, or conflict as well, too.
Steve, just dovetailing off of that, I had a friend that's I guess he would be a C, very cautious.
Yeah, that describes a C. Yeah,
and
cautious,
because he's cautious, he thinks a lot.
That's
right. Does that make sense?
That's an attribute. They're analytical, conservative, contemplative. They think a ton. Exactly.
So he, I sent him to make a deal happen with another guy that was a high I, very outgoing.
Bingo.
Right.
Yeah.
So the high I guy wanted the cautious guy to work together, and it was in real estate. They were real estate investors.
Yeah.
So. And I know my friend that's cautious, he takes time to think about stuff. So the high I guy, my buddy that's really exciting, like a real salesperson kind of guy, he goes, John, I want to work with you. We're going to give you 40% of all the profits. And while he's talking, he waits, and my buddy John is thinking. Well, thinking for him takes about 2 minutes. While he's thinking, the other guy is thinking, what's going on? Why didn't he say yes yet? So then he goes, we'll give you 45% of the profits. So then my buddy John has to reprocess. That's an extra 2 minutes of thinking that. Then he goes, you know what, John, we'll give you 50% of the profits and we'll give you a car. So now John's thinking about it. And then my other buddy goes, you know, why don't you go home and think about it? So then I call up John. I go, after I talk to my buddy, I said, what happened? He goes, your buddy, John. I don't know. He doesn't make a decision. I call John. I go, John, what happened? He goes, well, I was thinking about the 40%. It sounded pretty good. I was about to say yes. And while I was thinking, he said 45. Yeah. So then I said, okay, let me rethink about that. And while I was thinking about that, he offered me 50. He goes, well, every time I stopped thinking, this guy would give me more, so I just stopped to see what else I could get. And they never got a deal done because the one gentleman couldn't understand the personality type.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, a potential partnership couldn't happen based on exactly what you said. The one personality couldn't relate to the other, and because of that, because they didn't understand the communication styles, nothing ever happened.
And the strange thing about his story is those were two opposites. Those are the exact opposite styles.
Right. That's rare that you get that kind of, you know.
Yeah, and influencers are very gregarious, talking about going. They want to spend time building a relationship. The conscientious or compliance style wants to understand numbers, facts, and figures, and they do not want to be rushed to make a quick decision.
That's absolutely. My buddy needs to think about everything.
One of my biggest success stories is with a huge consumer packaged goods companies, and it was actually a workshop around presentation skills and communication. And this gentleman had just made a huge sale. He was off the charts at D&I, high, gregarious, talking about going. He was type A, off the charts. And his customer was a high C, very slow decision maker, didn't pull the trigger on a new product until 5 days at the quickest. So a few weeks earlier, he had sold this gentleman $300,000 order. The problem was they were closing out a quarter, and he had to sell some more. So they were doing the workshop, and I worked with this guy one-on-one. He was hilarious. And I really worked on him on changing his communication style, slowing that type A personality, and also redesigning his presentation to make it more flexible or adaptive to that compliance style buyer. Within 24 hours, he resold that customer another $50,000 order in that time frame. He said it normally takes 5 calls to close that sale. With this particular customer, we have a ton of stories like that where we're able to close the communication gap and get people to bite a lot quicker.
Wow.
I do a lot of work in pharmaceuticals as well, too, and one of my biggest clients there, they had issues. They had a low market share on their product. It took them typically 7 calls to see a physician, and when they saw the physician, they had about a minute to capture their attention, and it took them several visits to actually get them to write the script. We were able to cut all those steps in half. The time they got to see the physician, the time they got with the physician was increased, and the time that physician wrote the order was much quicker as well too. So this process really works, and it's about building trust. I always say we're in a fast-paced, high-tech, low-touch world. We're forgetting the art of human dynamic. We're forgetting that there's another person across the desk from me or across the table from me. And I've got to remember that and establish that trust, and you can do that through effective communication. And as like I said, I use this tool DISC or Myers-Briggs to do that.
So you advise employers when hiring employees also to use this tool when choosing their employees as well, correct?
It's one of the tools. There's several other things. Yeah, I'd say typically you want to give those assessments to the final. I forget what there's legal repercussions.
Okay.
Yeah, but it can be given to all the final candidates, so to speak.
I was given that in my job years ago. It wasn't for employment, but it was a part of just team building that we had done and at a prior job. And I found that I had a very unique chart. I was low in everything except the D.
Yeah.
Nobody had any chart that looked like mine. So I was a high D, and everything else was very low. So what does that tell you about me when you see charts like that?
Well, it all depends. You have a pretty powerful style there, and I want to state something very, very important. There's no right or wrong style. Right. As I'm speaking to people out there, I don't want to think I'm a certain style. I can never be a good salesperson. I can never be a good manager. That's wrong. Any style, each style has its plus side. Each style has its minus side. The key is to understand those attributes, that self perspective, that self viewpoint of yourself. Understand yourself, read others, and adapt accordingly. So you see different blended styles. There's what I would call easy reads and difficult reads. You would be an easy read because your dominant is so high off the charts. That's easy to capture. Someone like myself, I'm a blended S-D blend, and my scores are very close. So it's very difficult to read me. But it's also been a great tool for self-management because as an S, I tend to hold in my emotions. I won't share my thoughts. If I'm in very stressful times, people have called me a play on my name, Even Steven. Mm-hmm. They think everything's
right.
fine, steady, reliable, I'm fine. But my blended style, which is a second close style, is a D. Mm-hmm. So that D, that dominant, that aggressive, that type A personalities, bubbling underneath that person, not sharing their emotions. And I've been known to, when things get pushed far, my dominant style will come out. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, what happened to Even Steven today? The thing is, I've learned that as a self-management piece for myself. So that's what the tool's nice for, too. You learn a lot about yourself, but most importantly, it's how I'm going to interact, build trust, and build effective communication with others to increase sales, to become a better manager, a better leader, or deal with situational things such as dealing with change, dealing with conflict, and things such as that.
That's some great points right there. Got to take a quick break, but coming back from the break, we'll talk a little bit more with Steve Gavatorta and Chris Kermitzos. And if you're just tuning in, you've been listening to That Business Show with Jamie Meloni, where business becomes show business.
Bud Spriggs and Movement Mortgage want you to experience the thrill of one-day underwriting and the comfort in knowing your loans will be clear to close in record time. While the competition looks to a lost closing date, Bud Spriggs and Movement Mortgage focus on their 12-day clear to close. They do this by utilizing their world-class operations staff to underwrite your loan within 6 hours, process your loan in 12 days, and have your loan closed in time. Underwritten in 6 hours, cleared to close in 12 days. Bud Spriggs and Movement Mortgage.
Tampa Bay weather is a roof killer. That's why when getting your roof done, you want it done right. Hi, I'm Jamie Meloni of the Jamie Meloni Real Estate Show. When considering a new roof or repair, talk to Westfall Roofing. They've been installing high-quality roofs in Tampa Bay for over 25 years. Get a free, no-obligation estimate by calling 855-99-ROOFING. Find out what already 15,000 satisfied customers already know. Call now, 855-99-ROOFING. That's 855-99-ROOFING.
Are you in need of new flooring or ready to tackle that home remodeling project? Then contact Yeager & Company Incorporated, a family-owned, state-certified general contracting business with over 70 years of experience and the recipient of the Angie's List Super Service Award for the last 8 years in multiple categories. Yeager & Company comes to you with their shop-at-home flooring sales service, and their hardwood flooring refinishing is the very best in the Bay. Kitchen and bath design featuring American-made, well-born cabinets, and all work is done by employees, not subcontractors. Learn more at YeagerFlooring.com. In the market for a reverse mortgage? Contact Access Reverse, a local company with personalized service in the Bay Area. Call them at 727-347-0305 or visit AccessReverse.com for a no-cost, no-obligation consultation. They'll come to your home and speak with you about the best options for your reverse mortgage. Plus, they offer the lowest closing costs. Don't just get a reverse mortgage. Get the right reverse mortgage with Access Reverse. Visit AccessReverse.com. NMLS number 4566.
This report is brought to you by iHeartMedia.
Looking for a way to increase your business? Ever thought about advertising on radio? iHeartMedia can customize a campaign to meet your specific needs. Call 844-BUY-RADIO. That's 844-BUY-RADIO. Or go to iHeartMedia.com.
From the Bright House Network's Traffic Center.
Still seeing a slow ride on 275 southbound through the downtown interchange and heavy delays on I-4 westbound from the Selman connector into 275. And we have a crash in St. Pete now on 22nd Avenue South near 12th Street South. See traffic problems? Call the Injury Firm of Abrahamson and Uterwick Hillsborough Traffic Tip Line 866-545-9595.
Freeze warnings in effect until 9 o'clock. Wind chill advisory in effect until 10. Sunny and not as windy, high 56. Not as cold tonight, low 43. Tomorrow, sunny, high 72.
You're listening to That Business Show with Jamie Meloni on 1250 Wins WHNZ. Once again, here's your host, Jamie Meloni.
Welcome back, everybody, to That Business Show with Jamie Meloni, where business becomes show business. Learn more about the show over at TampaBayRadio.com. Currently talk with Chris Kremitzos and Steve Gavatorta of the Steve Gavatorta Group. And Steve, we're going into the break there. We're talking about the disc profiles. Tell me about a little bit more about how this tool can be used with relationships as well.
I don't use it for that. I've had several clients recommend that I do, and it's kind of funny. After all my workshops, I'll typically have people come up and say, I want to take this for my spouse or significant other. How in the heck do I do that? And so I will offer it for that situation. That's not my main focus. And I always joke, I tell people, I help save marriages. However, I'm 52 and single. I'm not sure how well I'm using it for my personal life. So, but it is a great tool. It's excellent for your personal life and your professional life as well, too. I love it. It's changed my life, and it's helped me, again, in my personal self-management perspective, my personal relationships, but most importantly, I love helping my customers be able to become better at what they do, whether it's closing sales, becoming a better leader, or dealing with situations such as change and
Steve,
risk.
I actually, my wife and I own a business together, so we took it together.
Oh, okay.
And we came out High I, which is outgoing.
Who was High I?
Both of us, actually. We both had the similar. And D, which is driven. Yeah. So those two came up, and it was
two type A's. Really,
two type A's.
Yeah.
So we do butt heads because she also has a cautious side. But like you said, it's blended. There's nothing. No one's wrong or right.
Correct.
But it's nice to understand how someone processes information or how they react to it. And then we had our whole team take it. And one thing I would recommend is if you're going to have your team take it or people you work with, have someone like yourself, a trained professional, to help with what that means, because you could take it, but you need someone to help you and not make anyone wrong, anyone right, because then people will say, oh, I'm this, I'm that, but it's really great to have a professional to walk you through it.
Exactly, and that's a great point, Chris. That's where I get the best kick out of my job. It's amazing the different dynamics. I love when I'm doing a workshop and the teams, they finish assessments and I get to read their scores before the workshop, because it's a great predictor for how this team's going to behave during the workshop. Or it can help me predict why certain things are happening. I'll give you a great example. I was working for a bank or with a bank in New York City, and they were going through a massive change initiative being led by another consultant, not me. The change initiative was not going anywhere. They couldn't figure out why. People aren't embracing it, whatnot. So they brought me in to work with the change initiative team. The change initiative team consisted of 15 people, 13 of which were high C's. People who didn't like change.
Now, what's the C? What's the C component again? Tell me what
it stands for. Compliance or conscientiousness. Okay. They are highly risk averse. Okay. People do not like change. Very much what Chris was saying earlier. People do not like making decisions. They need time to think. So this change initiative was led by a team that didn't like change.
Right.
So that gave me a lot of insights as to why this team is behaving the way they are. Mm-hmm. And I started working with them to help them figure out how to move a little bit quicker, sooner rather than later. The base rule of thumb is like styles tend to communicate better. A dominant style to dominant, influencer to influencer, steadiness to steadiness, compliant to compliant. Because there's less adapting that has to go on. But with two dominant styles, there still may be some of the butting of heads, as Chris mentioned. So, and like styles too, doesn't automatically equal productivity. Two salespeople who are I's, a salesperson and I buyer or customer, could possibly not get anything done because they're talking and building relationships.
Well, that's why they need you to translate
Exactly.
that, because they're still, like you said, it's still communication between two human beings.
Exactly. And that's what I do. I parlay this into specific needs of my customers, whether it's in their need is sales, enhancing sales effectiveness, dealing with change, managerial effectiveness, conflict resolution, negotiation skills as well, too. Everything I do, that is the foundational element, because if you do not have trust, you're not going to be successful in sales, as a manager, as a leader, or anything you try.
The more cautious type,
Correct.
that's a minority of people, right, usually?
No, they're fairly evenly mixed. You see a lot more on the dominant influencer sides. S is probably the least prevalent style out there.
I guess because like you said, personalities tend to group together. So I'm out in the social scene, so I'm usually with people similar. But if anyone wants to run into a group of C's, cautious people, just go talk to a librarian. We had to put an event yesterday at the library, and every question was like, I don't know if I could do that. I need to. It's like, just tell me yes or no, because that's my personality, right? And they were like, oh, the process is this. Give me a second, and then I had to slow down. Because here I am getting frustrated, but that's because I want them to communicate the way I do. That's not fair to them.
Yeah. And that you'll typically find, like I said, there's no right or wrong style, but you will typically find certain roles will be better for certain styles. An analytic person, a number cruncher, or a librarian typically are more on the SC scale, where more sales-oriented people are more the dominant influencer side. However, once again, that doesn't automatically equal success. There's downsides and plus sides to everything. In fact, in our world of a lot of data coming about, especially in the world I deal in with consumer packaged goods, loyalty card information, syndicated data, more salespeople have to be astute at analyzing and leveraging fact-based data than they used to be. And a lot of buyers out there in packaged goods companies are more astute at analyzing these numbers. So you are seeing a rise in salespeople becoming or having that need to be much more analytic, which is part of my job, is to help transition sales teams to start thinking that way and leverage facts more effectively as well, too.
Now, I'm as I said earlier, my chart showed that I was a high D or high dominant personality, and everything else was low. I mean, would I butt heads with another person with the same chart? I would. And speaking within business terms and running businesses, I've always thought that if I see somebody else with that same chart, that I should kind of probably stay away from. Probably wouldn't mesh well. Who is a good natural fit for me, just broadly speaking? Am I looking for a high C, a high S person? Tell me just
You're
briefly.
saying interacting in
in a business sense, yeah.
Like I said, typically like styles tend to get along better. The only problem is two dominant styles butt heads.
Right.
So there's no real answer for that. The key to becoming successful is knowing your attributes, knowing you're a high D, but knowing who you're talking to. And that's what I do, teach people about who they're talking to. So if you're dealing with an influencer, you're going to have to slow the pace of your aggressiveness down.
Okay.
And be much more conversational. Build a relationship. Take your time. Get to know them. Be a little more exciting or whatever. Not that you're not. If you're dealing with a compliance style, you've really got to calm your jets down and make them feel comfortable with the change they're making or taking a risk. In your world, it could be buying a house, spending a lot of money, right?
Yep.
So them taking a risk on something they're going to live in the rest of their lives is huge. So dealing with a compliance style, you've got to make them feel comfortable. You can't come across as overbearing or too powerful when you're dealing with them.
Great information. Real quick, got about a minute left. Steve, where can people get more information about your services?
You can call me directly, 813-908-1343. My email is very simple. My first name at mylastname.com, Steve at gavatorta.com. And the website obviously is www.gavatorta.com.
And Chris, also, where can people get more information about you?
They could go to tbbo.org, and that's for Tampa Bay business owners, or they could send me an email, Chris, CHRIS, at tbbo.org. And please look us up on iTunes. Story Jam Theater just launched 2 days ago. I'd love the love and support from the Tampa Bay community.
Thank you very much, guys. Great interview today. And if you're just tuning in, you've been listening to That Business Show with Jamie Meloni, where business becomes show business. Have a great weekend, everybody.